Welcome, everybody, to the Inner Carnivore Podcast, episode 19, with Jessica, I'm going to butcher it, Henrard. Did I get it right?
Pretty good.
Close enough. Before we get into it with Jessica, anybody who's listening, whether you're streaming on iTunes, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or watching the full video on YouTube, if you could do a huge, huge favor, like, subscribe, comment, leave a review. It helps out immensely. Jumping into it, how are you doing, Jessica, from New Zealand, right?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you.
Awesome. This has been the coolest thing is I have now been able to interview people in like 7 different countries, which is super crazy. Anywhere from Canada to Finland to now south of the hemisphere, which is still weird to me because you guys are in the summer right now, correct?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
I still don't understand how that works. Like, I've taken plenty of like science classes, but it's still hard for me to believe that. Yeah, but anyway.
That it's a different season. I know. It's so good though. It's been such a good summer so far.
Good.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So super glad that you're on here because you have a couple topics and line of work that you do are actually super intriguing to me. In addition to, your low carb carnivore eating. So I'm very, very intrigued with that. Off the bat, how long have you been doing your line of work?
So I've been in health for 21 years, but I have specialized in NRT, which is Neuro reset technique, for about the last 11. So I started back in the day, degree in sports and PTing and all of that, and then just did heaps of postgrad stuff afterwards because I was quite a poorly child. I was pretty much sick from birth, skin conditions, autoimmune problems, gut health issues. I was always looking for how to heal myself, and that's kind of what got me into health in the first place because I kind of trialed and tested everything you can possibly imagine on myself to try and heal myself. And that's kind of how I found health. And so ever since then, I've just done a ton of postgrad stuff. And then I was fortunate enough to come across NRT and I got invited to learn it 11 years ago. And it has been just utterly life-changing. Like, my work is amazing and I get to help people transform their health dramatically and they get to keep it. And it's instant, which is like when being a PT back in the day, everything that I thought I understood about how our body works, how we get stronger, progressive adaptation overload, all that kind of jazz. I thought I knew a lot about the human body. And then when I started doing NRT, I kind of had to wipe away everything that I'd learned. Well, not everything, but a huge amount of what I'd learned. And it was incredibly humbling to realize that I didn't actually know much about human function. And so that was kind of the start of my journey, and that was 11 years ago. And since then I have become a specialist in it, and I have assisted teach a few other people learning it as well, which has been amazing last year. And I would like to get into a position that I'm helping teach more students because there needs to be just more of us in the world. And there is currently less than 20 active practitioners globally. So it's incredibly rare.
So that makes me feel a little bit better as to why I'd never heard of this.
Yeah.
And so part of the reason it piques my interest is my bachelor's is in sports medicine. Yeah. So I was a college athlete, bachelor's in athletic training, dabbled in, strength and conditioning and collegiate coaching after that. Personal training, all that kind of stuff. So when I first kind of stumbled upon it, I was like, what is this NRT? And I haven't had a long time ago, you probably don't even remember, you did send me some information. I still have not had a chance to dive into it at all. So I definitely want to get in on that.
Yes.
What is NRT and how does that differ from, when you said you have to relearn kind of what the body does?
Yeah. Well, it's essentially a learning modality. So you're essentially earning and learning sense and control over yourself. So it works with the brain and the nervous system. And we essentially restore muscle control, muscle recruitment, motor control, therefore strength, mobility, and output via this I'd call it a passive modality. So a lot of the time people are on the table, there is thorough testing involved. So basically we can find where your weaknesses lie at a nervous system level, which is unlike anything else that exists on the planet. My belief back in the day was always that in order to recruit a muscle or gain strength in a tissue, that you would have to do repetitions on an exercise in a muscle group to recruit said tissue. And now what I understand with NRT is that it's all subconscious. These messages that we're getting essentially from our body about where we are in space, for example, or where we're moving, or how much force we need to lift an object, that's all subconscious. It's all happening autonomically. And that the signaling or the messaging coming in from those receptors to the brain gives us information about where we are, our current status. So where we are in space, where we're moving to, or how much force we need to move. And all of that data that's coming in to our receptors in our body to tell us that information, if that information coming in is poor, is weak, is inefficient information in, then our control of that system, of that tissue is going to be poor. We can't control what we don't know. And so essentially with NRT, you're learning a sense of yourself. And it's crazy because, as you know, through training and all that kind of jam, if you're wanting to get stronger, you're going to load a tissue and then you're going to progressively adapt and overload that. What I'm saying is to you is it's the wiring that's weak, not the actual muscle itself, which means you can go from having really weak muscles to incredibly strong within about 5 minutes and achieving stuff that, you've been trying to achieve for years and years in the gym and not being able to do because your muscle wasn't able to recruit. So all your body was doing was compensating for that movement pattern. So if I want to do a bicep curl, I'm not necessarily going to do this perfect elbow flexion and use all the right muscles. I will lift or bend however I need to move to get said object off the floor, right? So compensation happens all the time and we're meant to compensate. But the problem with that is you're not recruiting the muscle that you think you're recruiting. So one, does it even recruit? Can you even access that tissue? And then what are you doing with that? And then we can work out exactly where your weaknesses lie at a nervous system level. And then we can restore the strength to the area instantly. And I mean like straight away. It's quite baffling when you see it in real life. And then the strength changes are insane. So yeah, it's working with the non-conscious system. I know you'll have to do a treatment with me. Now it can be done online. So the one good thing, or a couple of good things that came out of COVID in 2020 for me, was we learnt to do this virtually. Now I didn't think that was possible because, when you put someone on the table and you're recruiting and turning on tissues, I was like, how are we going to do that, via the internet? But it's bloody effective. It works really well. And I've now been doing that since 2020. So this will be my 4th year doing online. It's slower. And I always say to people, if you are near me in the Southern Hemisphere, then come to me. If you can get my hands on your body, that's the ideal situation. However, it does work online. So I worked with a guy with a really old 31-year-old shoulder injury from when he was a teenager, and he was on a motorcycle and crashed and absolutely smashed up his shoulder and had debilitating pain and problems for forever, for 30 plus years. Couldn't sleep with it anywhere in this range, had to prop pillows all around it, terrible. And we did 5 sessions on his shoulder virtually online, and he has full strength. So it works really well online, but I could probably achieve that in 2 hours if you came to me in person. So it's just slightly slower. But yeah, it's so good.
So when you're saying this in my head, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
When you're doing exercise, when you're helping people get stronger, it's kind of common knowledge that people who have never been to the gym, right? You start working out, they're going to have these ridiculous strength gains right away because of neuromuscular adaptation, right? Just them figuring out this motion or figuring out what it is they're trying to accomplish, and they go from, lifting 5 pounds to lifting 50 pounds. And you're like, wait, that's not possible. Like, so concept, like I understand the concept, right? There's also, a lot of research on therapy with athletes doing visualization, right? Like visualizing and then coming back either just as strong or stronger without having done any exercises.
Physical, yeah.
Yeah, without having done any physical, strictly due to that one, like, I understand, right? Like, you can tell it to me. I'm like, yep, I know that. It's science. Like, it's been proven.
Yeah.
Still weird to me. Don't like, I mean, I get it, right? But it's hard to. So in a, like, and I understand what I'm asking. Having a science background, I understand what I'm asking. In a very, like, can you summarize how that happens, right? Like, how do you all of a sudden, because what it sounds like to me is it sounds like, have you seen the movie Limitless with Bradley Cooper?
With a little
That's what
pill.
it sounds like, right? Like, it sounds like you're taking the pill and then all of a sudden, like, he's Arnold and you're like, wait, what's happening?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. No. So the easiest way that I always kind of grasp it is it's like the electrics of something. So we're working with electrochemical signaling, okay, and we're talking about the capacity of a pathway. These pathways are called sensory neural pathways. We're working on your sensory information. Okay. And so if your sensory information coming in is poor, then your motor output's going to be poor. You've got to have a sense of yourself. So essentially, if you can strengthen the pathways, then you can instantly have change of your output and your strength and control of that system. So when I think of it like as a really simple, I'm going, okay, if you've got a car, you might have a car with all the pieces and the engine and the doors and all the bits and everything's like in really great condition, but you've got no electrics, then you can't move said object, right? It is like that. We're working on your wiring. We're working on your electrics and the data and the information coming into receptors and the quantity and quality of that information coming into those receptors. If our voltage exceeds the pathway, so to speak, then you're going to short out. You're not going to have access to that part of your system, that part of your body, and your body will adjust accordingly. So essentially, tightness, weakness, pain is all a resultant or a symptom of a neuromuscular weakness. If there's a weakness in your wiring, then we're going to be defensively tight. We're going to restrict and tighten away from areas that we don't have control over ourselves. And it's a defensive state that our body does, and it's great that it does that. But what it means is that we believe, and this is what I believed being, at university and working with clients for, a long time before I found this, was that in order to make changes, they had to be gradual. You had to be consistent in the gym. You've got to keep lifting the load and keep adapting and keep showing up. And that is how I thought that the body got strong. And then when I saw a muscle go instantly from weak to having full capacity, which means changes in your range of motion and your mobility as well, without stretching. You're not stretching or releasing anything. And that's a big difference between it and other modalities, is that you're not looking for why your body's restricted, because we know that it's just a weakness. And if you fill in that part of your map of yourself that is unknown, then the tightness and restriction in other areas is going to dissipate, because it doesn't need to stop you going into an area that you have no control. So you're filling in sense of control over yourself. And there's more than 22 different receptors that we can treat in the body. So everything affects our function. But the biggest thing is that data coming into our cells and us being able to send and receive that information via the nervous system in the brain. And once you've got control, or you have access or knowledge, or you've learnt that area of yourself, then you have full usage over it. And that means full strength over that tissue as well. It is so mind-blowing. And like understanding it, and even me who's doing it and has been doing it for 11 years, it's still hard to explain to people. And even people that do have backgrounds in physiology and stuff, they're like, what? How does that work? But it makes sense when you think about it logically, because we don't move ourselves. Think about it. If you woke up from a stroke or some kind of coma, okay, you can't will your legs to move. This is non-conscious, right? It comes from the wiring that essentially moves us. And so we can't recruit muscle just with our mental willpower. Okay. And yes, there's bits in what you're talking about repetition and how, if you visualize yourself doing a specific skill set or something like that, it is changing the different recruitment and activation in your brain. And yes, there is improvement to skill set and motor control via that. But it's not change. It doesn't change the nervous system in the brain on a long-lasting level. What we do actually changes things, and you get to keep your results. So, sometimes you go to a physio or something and they might stretch you and you're like, oh, yay, I can now move up here. But then the next day what happens is everything gets tight and restricted because you've gone into an area that you have no control over. And someone's violated you into that space. You haven't just taken yourself there. And so now you've got more tightness, more restriction, more inhibition because your nervous system's gone, you don't know that part of yourself, and therefore we're going to defensively tighten away from that area. So that when you restore something, let's say it's a shoulder, that's the medial deltoid that Sean's here, let's say it's weak or you injure it. Okay, let's say I damage that. And so I start going short of 90. I start working just to here because when I get to that top bit, it's a bit tender. Okay, and so what happens is essentially you're like atrophying a part of your map. You're losing control of that section of 10, 15 degrees from here to here, okay, because of maybe an injury or weakness. And then what happens is when you get to here, instead of lifting here from the humerus, you start to elevate the scap to get to that new range and so forth and so on. And so what's happening is you've lost control of a piece of your map. And so you'll get tightening on the opposing side to stop you going into that area of unknown territory, okay? And you'll get tightness and inhibition on the opposite side of the joint. And is the problem that you've got tightness down here and you're doing these stretches and you're foam rolling around and you're trying to work on the fascia, that it's tight for a reason. And if you start messing with things that are tight to stop you going into a place that's unknown, then you're going to end up hurting yourself. So what we do is restore the map. I will give you access to that piece, fill in your neuromuscular control over that area through the joint, the fascia, the ligaments, the tendons, the muscles. There's more, myofascia, all the different levels of receptive information. And I give it to your nervous system and I go, here, this is where it is. This is how to move it. This is what to do. And then suddenly you can now go here. This is let go all by itself. You haven't stretched a thing. And suddenly you have no problem, pain or inhibition because you have control and sense of yourself in that area. And that's what I do all day. I fill in people's maps of themselves. I give them sense and control over their bodies, nervous systems and brain. So it's cool because you can also test it. You can find out where the weaknesses is. So it takes away all the guesswork. I wouldn't go, okay, JT, you've got a weak pec, for example. There's that, why is my posture like this? Oh, I've got weak this, I've got tight this. That's what I learned at university. And it's just so reductionist, it's ridiculous. That's not how we work at a brain and nervous system level. And the weakness may not even be anywhere where you're thinking the weakness is. So we can find the weakness at your nervous system and your body will show me exactly where those weak nervous system pieces are. And then we can treat them and then we can test it again and you see the instant change in your function, which is just insane because there's nothing instant that exists in terms of this. And there's nothing that lasts like this because I'll test something, fix it, test it, make sure it's strong. And then the next time I test it, a week later, a month later, a year later, you've still got that strength and control over that. And the only time that I've found that people have lost said strength and control of an area or sense of self of an area has been on two occasions. One where a guy has retina detached and it shifted his whole nervous system. Like we had to put a lot of stuff back together. And the only other time was when someone had surgery and they had those nerves severed. Okay, and so then we had to restore function again. Okay,
Gotcha.
But other than that, as long as once you've got access and you have learned and earned that sense of that part of yourself, as long as you keep going into that space, you're going to keep it. Right? And so then you get to keep what you gain. So, people ask me, how many sessions do I need with you? How long's a piece of string? All the questions. And it's like, well, it depends on one, where the weaknesses are in your nervous system, how many there are, and and also what work you're doing on the side to help yourself, because obviously there are going to be things that help you that are going to complement the treatment really well. But the ultimate answer is that even if you have 20 things that are wrong with your body, and we can go through and assess and we can find out exactly where those weaknesses lie, and then we do one thing, and then you don't see me for a couple of months, and then we do the next thing, you're basically just chipping away at earning a sense of yourself. So some people will jump right in and they'll be doing 3 sessions a week, and other people will just see me for a piece, fix that bit, save some more money, see me for the next piece, and so on and so forth. So you can chip away, or you can go all in and have full body transformations. Either way is effective. Either way works. It is an investment in yourself. People are spending a ton of money on themselves, but it is in a modality that I guarantee works with every single human I've ever touched. And that's because I've had 11 years of seeing it over and over and over again. It's not cockiness or arrogance. It's I know I can restore your muscle function. I know I can give you motor control, strength, mobility instantly, and it lasts. That is a guarantee I could give any single human being, because I've had 11 years of seeing it. That's pretty cool.
No, that's super awesome. So my question is, have you ever had anybody or worked with anybody who proactively did this, right? They're like, you know what, I'm an athlete, or I'm a lifter, and you know what, I want to make sure that I'm getting absolutely everything out of my bench press or my deadlift or my squat.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked with somebody like that where you proactively are doing that as opposed to, a reactive therapy type?
Yes, definitely. So obviously you can imagine the implications for this for sports performance. It's insane. You can get stronger, faster, quicker recovery. I worked with a guy with a double torn supraspinatus tendon. He was meant to be out for months. We had him back in 2 weeks. Because we can work with torn tendons, torn ligaments. It's insane. So performance-wise, yes. I also had a girl who was a neuro chiropractor. And at the time, I was like, what the hell is a neuro chiropractor? It was similar with you. I was like, what is that? How does that work? And, she already had a lot of capacity because she was a chiropractor, a neuro one, so worked with brain, worked with cranium, worked with that kind of stuff. And she was in epic shape, athlete. And she was like, oh, what do you do? How does that work? And then when she saw it and realized what she couldn't achieve that I could, I saw her about 4 times a week for about 18 months. We threw the book at her, and she became the strongest, most mobile. I mean, she'd had problems with ankle issues and hadn't been able to run for years. And this is even with all her capabilities. She couldn't fix these things. So once she saw it, she was like, oh my God, I need this in my life. And we've just and it has been proactive. Other than the ankle, it was how good can we make you? How optimized can we make you? How bionic can we make you? Because if you have full sense of yourself and full control over your nervous system, you can do anything. And I mean anything. So we have got people out of wheelchairs. We have worked with people with MES and cerebral palsy. We've worked with people with neurological disorders. This is a scientific discovery, and it's freaking life-changing. So I work with tons of people that are really broken, really chronically sick and ill, and mostly have tried everything else, because by the time they find me, it's quite hard to find me and the 20 other practitioners globally. And all of us are pretty rammed in terms of client capacity. So we don't advertise. You won't find this online. This all comes through word of mouth. And it will usually be, oh, my cousin, uncle, brother, sister, mother, whatever, said I need to see you. I don't know what you do, but I'm here. And that's a lot of the clients that I'll get and work with. And then, most of the time it comes from a lot of spouses. So I worked with a lady who had about a 40-year-old spinal issue, does Pilates, does heaps of stuff, is in reasonable health, just never been able to fix these tightness, pain, inhibition in her hips and spine. And we fixed it all. We just sorted it all out. She can do ass to grass spot, squatting. Her spinal nutation is completely transformed. Her body's transformed. And although her husband had said, oh, it sounds like woo-woo. What the hell is that? That can't be true. no, he's so skeptical, bless his heart. He's like super skeptical. And then he saw his wife transform and she had done everything else. And he was like, what are you doing? And then he said, well, maybe I should go for a session. Maybe I should have a treatment with Jess. And went to book a session and then saw how much it was and was like, wow, how much money have you been spending? So he's actually doing the Tour de France cycle this year. And he has got a sciatica issue, a shoulder issue, and a spinal problem. And so although he was like super skeptical, he came in for a session and he just was like, what the hell? And it is really like that because we don't think that this is possible. So it does seem like some kind of sorcery, you know, and you're like, how is that? How have you done that? Like, how is this possible? And then sure enough, you know, then he just starts working with me and it just rolls on like that. So I do get loads of skeptics, loads of broken people, but I do get the odd performance chaser too that is like, oh my God, just make me bionic. And, you know, me being one of them as well. Like when I started, I was like, oh my God, turn everything on my body, make everything epic and functional. And whenever I'm injured, it's the same jazz. Like I was doing training for Tough Mudder in London, which is like an obstacle event.
Yep.
And I was doing some pretty high box jumps on a picnic table, a metal to picnic table. And I swung my arm up to box jumps and smashed my hand and broke my finger. And this was about 2 weeks, maybe 10 days before my event. And it was broken. I was like, how am I going to do this? And I had it treated. I had my finger all fixed. And when I was doing that event, this was my strong arm. And if I went to swing, this felt bionic. And this arm was like, woo, and this is the one that wasn't injured. And so I was like, how, you know, and so it really starts to make you think about what we understand of potential, of human function and potential. And it kind of wipes away everything that we think is possible. And I fucking love that because I get to blow people's minds, you know, and actually help them straight away. It's not like, oh, go do this rehab exercise 50 gazillion times with this banded da-da-da. One, how do they know that even tissue is weak? Two, you know, it's all guesswork. All of their assessments are done from experience and their certifications, qualifications, and what they know. But when I test someone's body, it shows me where the weaknesses is. So I don't have to guess. It takes all of the guesswork out. And then once I've done the treatment and I retest it, I can check my work. If I've missed something or if new capacity, range of motion has opened up, I can see, oh no, there's more there. Fill it in, test it again, and then I know that I've done the job that I think I'm doing. And I loved that because it took away the guesswork and the, oh, I think this might help you. It's like, yeah, we've done this. This is what we've done. Sweet. This is what needs to be done next. Cool. We're going to do this piece next. And we just systemically chip away at people's bodies.
That's super awesome. So that's really interesting because that thought process like directly goes into like carnivore, right? Because that's a lot of the thinking that people have once they start and like experience carnivore in terms of, you know, health recommendations and all that. So how long, when did you discover carnivore and like, how did you discover? Is this like, because I feel like this is almost like an enlightened path and you're like, well, what else can I figure out? Like I've done this. So now, like, so how did you get to carnivore and how did that process happen?
Oh my God. I didn't realize you don't know. So, funny as doing my degree in sports 2000, oh my God, I officially graduated in 2007. So minus 3 years on top of that. So it must have been 2004, 2003, I started doing my degree. And one of my teachers and my professors at university was Professor Bart Kay, who is a huge carnivore celebrity in our realm. And Bart and he actually did my dissertation at university, and he always taught me, always from when I was young, to question everything. Where did the research come from? Who funded the research? You know, like I learned to be able to keep my mind open. And even though at university I was spoon-fed information, and I did then regurgitate said information and spout it out like I thought I was so clever. And I'm like, yeah, you need to eat eat non-heme iron with heme iron and eat plants with, and your absorption will increase of iron, all this rubbish that is actually completely the opposite of what I used to teach people. He always taught me to just keep that mind open. And I'm so grateful for that, because it did keep that door open ajar for me to keep looking into further. And obviously at university, he wasn't able to teach the truth even at that point. He had to follow the curriculum. And so I learned that protein and fats were very important, but also plants were hugely important. And so I always prioritized protein and meat and fats, but I also ate a ton of plants. And if you look back to what I used to eat, JP, it was like meat and broths and fats and da-da-da with a ton of plant on the side. And I was paleo, la la la. And then what happened was my fiance had actually said, "Oh, I've heard about carnivore and la la la, and I found this guy, and he talks a lot of sense. He's a scientist, and you should check him out." And I was like, I don't have time for checking out research and no, I'm busy doing my thing. And he kept pestering me. Just watch this video. This guy he's a Kiwi guy. He's really blunt. He's got no filter, and he's got a potty mouth. He reminds me just of you. And I thought, okay, okay. So that's right. He was working out of London, and he started doing it. He started cutting out the plants. And each week that he'd come back from being away from 4 or 5 days, I could see a change in him. His skin was better. His psoriasis went away. He got leaner. And I was like, how are you getting better when you've cut vegetables? And so he kind of forced me into it. I didn't want to believe that what I'd taught for the last 15 years was bullshit. It's quite hard to realize that you have been conned. And then even through good intention and wanting the best for people, I'm then conning other people inadvertently as well. So it was shit, realizing that I had been creating inflammation and gut problems and stuff in clients that were paying me to help them. It was hard to swallow. And so I saw him and I started seeing his changes. And then he sent me a little YouTube clip of Bart K. And I just looked at him and went, oh, my God. I said, this is my ex-professor from uni. And he was like, no, it isn't. And I was like, yes, it is. So it was just this so funny thing. And that was about 3.5 years ago. And I got in contact with Bart and was like, hey, how's it going? And he's like, oh, my God, blast from the past. I hadn't seen him for however many years. And we just reconnected, and I went heavy meat-based for about a year first and just kept a little bit of plants in my world. And then I did the 90-day carnivore challenge with him on January 2021. And I was only eating the tiniest amount of plant toxins, low plant toxins. So iceberg lettuce, pumpkin, olives, just a tiny gherkins, pickles, just the low oxalate vegetables. I had them in my world. That was all I was eating at that point. And I was full disclosure, I had intention to go back to eating those particular plants because I liked them. I was if I have a burger, I want to put pickle and then hold it with a lettuce wrap. I was what is that really doing? It's not going to be doing much. And I thought, okay, I'll do this 90 days because I'm going to do it with Bart and I've committed to giving it a go. And have you seen my photos, my before and after photos from that 90 days?
I want to say, I can't think of it off the top of my head.
I'll send them to you so you can click them in here.
Yes.
But that 90-day challenge, oh my gosh, it transformed my body. And I wasn't training. I did the smallest amount of exercise over those 3 months. I did 1 to 2 light resistance training sessions. And for me, I do 5 days a week, typically all year round. And so doing 1 or 2 is barely any exercise. All I did was cut out that tiny bit of low oxalate plants. And that was the result on my body. And I had body comp changes. So I lost body fat, but it was more my skin. I've had 3 babies. The skin on my stomach started to tighten and shrink and heal. Some of my fine lines and wrinkles started to go away. I had these deep crevices in my forehead because I'm very expressive with my face. Yeah, and when I relaxed, they were still there. And so they started to fade. And I was like, how is this happening? Because skin regeneration and all that kind of, it's not meant to be possible. Even the tightening on my skin, like in my stomach, I was like, how is this healing? And for example, one of my problems that I always found is I had inflammation in my ankles, and I called them cankles. Like, do you have cankles in America? I had cankles.
Oh,
And
yeah. Oh, yeah.
in those pictures, you can literally see that my cankles have gone, and you can see the side of my bone in my leg, probably for the first time in my life. And it didn't matter how lean I got. I get down to my lowest body fat, and I still had that inflammation. And it just, when I did the 90 days, it just went away. And I was like, oh my gosh. So my skin was healing, my cellulite was going away, my cankles were going away. And when I finished the 90 days, I was like, I would be an idiot to go back to eating those little bits of plants. Like, why would I? And so then it was just, the rest has been history. So since January 2021, not a single plant has passed nothing other than meat has been in my mouth. That sounds really rude. Since 2021. And I'll never, ever eat vegetables or plants ever again. Like, it's just a no-brainer for me. It's just part of who I am and what I do. And it's a really beautiful, freeing way to eat and live. Like, I used to be obsessed with food. I did it all, like all of the things. I did nutritionalists, dietitians, Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig's, fasting, detoxes, supplements, all of it. I'd done everything, as I said, because I was always looking to try and heal myself. And then when I did this, I was just like, it's so easy. I don't have to weigh. I used to weigh my food, JT. I was like crazy about food. And now I just eat till when I'm full. I stop when I'm done. If I'm not hungry, I don't eat. If I'm out and about and there's nothing I can, nothing that I can eat, I just don't. Like, it's just so chilled. And I've never felt better. So I'll just never go back to eating vegetables. They're just non-essential. And they created a huge amount of inflammation, skin issues in me, and gut problems that have now resolved and healed. And yeah, it's just so easy.
That's so crazy. What class did Bart K teach you?
A number. Exercise physiology, exercise science, some sports nutritional papers. But obviously he wasn't teaching what he wanted to teach.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because I'm familiar with him, and I knew he was a professor, but I didn't know enough about him to know what type of stuff he taught. So that's super crazy.
Yeah.
Do you know when he went?
He's been carny for about 9 years now, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, because it had been about 7 when I started. So yeah, it's about 9 years. And actually his journey, even with NRT, he happened to, the shoulder injury I was talking about, that was Bart. So he had that motorcycle accident, yeah. And he was like an exercise physiologist, right? He's a cardiovascular pathopathologist. Like, this guy knows the fucking body.
He's smart. Like, the dude is really smart.
He is like brain on legs. And he in himself should be the guy that should be able to fix his own problem, right? You'd think. Yeah. Okay, so it wasn't until we did it with NRT virtually online that he had full function and range of his shoulder. It transformed him. We also did some cool testing. He tore his Achilles playing cricket, and he had to fly in to see me and me fix his Achilles. And, we used some different little testing kits. So we've got the dynamometers that test force output and stuff. And you could see an instant increase in more than 10 kilos of force output in 5 minutes of treatment. So he was just like having that data too, and being able to see what we can do with NRT is just amazing. It's so good. I love my work. So yeah. So it does work online. It does work in person, and it's backed by science. Like, this is essentially science. It's just, because it's a scientific discovery, it can't be patented, which means we can't show the treatment online. It is very underground hidden, because if it came out, there'd be 1,000 knockoffs of not what we're doing, because people don't understand how to do all the things. And even me, like the version of NRT that I first learned 11 years ago is completely different from what I'm using now. And what would have taken me, say, to do your quads, to treat just your knee extensor muscles, it would have taken me 10 hours to treat one leg. All of the muscle fibers of all of the divisions of tissue in that leg, 10 hours. I can now do both quads in under an hour easily. So the speed of it is much faster, like all the things. So it's developed and developed and developed, but the capacity and the capability of this treatment is just, it is limitless. It's like, it is the movie. It is just so good. So good.
So how do you balance that? Right. 'Cause like we've talked a little bit, and you went out like New Year's Eve, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance your lifestyle now, like especially carnivore, with going out? Because that's the biggest issue for a lot of people. Is they're like, well, I don't want my social life to suffer. Like I don't want to be like the out, like. But I see you, like I see, you post stuff all the time, and you're out and you're doing stuff, and you're at the beach, and you're doing whatever. And the normal person who watching this wouldn't think that you're carnivore based on the stuff that you do. Yeah. Right? So how do you balance that?
Yeah, so the going out thing is quite easy for me because I'm quite you can tell, I like people, I like to chat, I'm interested in people. And I can do that. I don't have to be under any influence to do that. So alcohol for me is not really a big deal. I can have a couple of drinks here and there if I fancy it. And if I don't, I won't. And it won't change who I am or my energy or the fact that I want to go home or not. Like I love to dance. I love to spend time with my friends. I love to go on walks and swim and go to the ocean every day. But it's just kind of part of who I am. So on New Year's, I had some clean alcohol, as clean as it can be. So I just stuck to gin. And I had that with soda water and a little bit of fresh lemon in it. And I just had a couple of them through the night. It wasn't like, because it's just not me. I don't do that. I've been in health 21 years. I taught myself not to binge drink a very long time ago. So it's quite easy to do that and have that every now and again. I might have a glass of red wine with dinner every now and again, but it really is just if I fancy it. It's not like, oh, I need a glass of wine. It's just like, yeah, cool. If I want it, I'll have it. And so that relaxed nature with not having so much, dogma to an area, it's cool. I just have that when I want it. And then like yesterday, for example, I went and got my nails done and I took a little thermos with my bolognese in it, which is just meat and stock and herbs and stuff. It's so good. And I sat there eating that, and people just are getting used to me. Like there's always meat coming out of my bag in some way or another. And because they've seen the changes in me too, they're like, what are you doing, Jess? Because you look good before. Now, like, what are you doing? You're more tanned, you're leaner, your inflammation's gone down. Like my face did not look like this when I was a teenager. Like it just didn't. And so people see it and then they're like, I want that. And so, my nail lady and her boyfriend have both gone carnivore. They've been 4 months carnivore now. And so I'm starting to kind of spread it out because people see the changes. So yeah, socially I still go out, I still do things, but I just take stuff with me or I just ask. Like it's so easy to ask and I don't have any shame. So you can't really embarrass me. I'll tell you whatever you want to hear. And if I want to ask for a steak with no salad, no, I don't want salad. No, I don't want dressing. No, I don't want that. I've got a seed oil allergy. I fib and say I've got an allergy to seed oils. Can you cook it in butter? Cool. Do you want this, that on the side? I'm like, no. I'm like, you can put some eggs on the side if you want or some butter on the side. And they're like, oh, what the hell? But people do it. Like you just got to get over yourself. Like if you don't care, they don't care. Like, if you're all like, oh, please may I have it? Oh, if you don't mind, could I? It's like, just ask for what you want. Just be like, can I have a steak? No seed oils. Put some butter on the side, thanks. It's so easy. And so, yeah, my social life doesn't get affected. And I've got one of my best friends is a vegan. And we go to lunch together. Yeah, I know. And I'll eat a huge steak and she'll sit there with her little salady whatever or her processed carbohydrates. Little dig at you there, but processed carbohydrate. And we don't need to discuss it. Like, we don't need that to be an impacting factor in our relationship or our friendship. And if she ever chooses to ask me, hey, Jess, why are you carnivore? Or la, 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 I'll speak to her about it. But until she asks me for my help or my advice, I'm not going to just give it. Like, I've learned that massively. Stop trying to help people that don't want your help. Like, you're wasting your breath. If they come to you and they're curious and they're inquisitive and they're interested and they want to find out more, cool, I'm fully here for that. But if I'm trying to like force stuff on people that they don't want to know, I'm done doing that. So this year has definitely been, or last year, 2023, was like the crumbling of everything that doesn't align with me anymore in every possible way. And just stepping into how I help people, what I do, and not being shy about saying it or offending people or, you know, or even just trying to give people advice that they're just not ready for it.
That's so true. So back in college, I worked as a server for a little bit, and the amount, like, don't care if somebody's like, hey, I have a really severe shellfish allergy. Can you check if the oil that you use to fry, you know, the fries, is that the same oil? Like, people get inundated with so many things that it's not a big deal. Like, it's not a big deal for you to be, now if, you know, there might be some that are like, oh, you know, if you're rude about it, but if somebody legit comes out and be like, hey, I have a seed oil like issue, can you just do a steak? And I just don't want anything on the side. Okay, whatever. Like, the number of crazy requests, like, that's just whatever. They don't have time to worry about it. But people get so self-conscious over asking, like, oh, I'm asking them to fix it a certain way. I guarantee anything that you're asking, they've heard way worse or way crazier. Or it's the person that's like, can you cook this to 146 degrees and not 145 and not 147? But if it's not like, you know, so those are the people that they're like, this Yahoo. It's not the person that's like, hey, I got a seed allergy. Can you like cook it in butter? Like, not a problem. Like, the cook in the back might be annoyed, but who cares? You're not dealing with that person.
Exactly. And ultimately, if they've got a problem, then go somewhere else. Like, I went on a wine tour, okay? And I don't drink white wine or Prosecco. And so I just drank the red wine and tipped my white wine into my girlfriend's glass. And she got absolutely tanked. And I was barely drunk because I just had a little bit of red wine here or there. But anyway, we got to this place and I needed food. I could feel that I needed food. And I looked on the menu and the only thing that was even in the realm of meat was these meatballs. And so I said to them, can I have the meatballs, but I don't want the sauce, because it was like a mushroom something sauce, like a ragu-y thing. And he was like, no, we can't do that. And I said, can I not just have the meatballs without the sauce? Like, does it really matter? And he goes, no, we don't do that. And I said, could you please just ask the chef for me? And sure enough, he comes back, he's like, yeah, the chef's fine with that. Yeah. And I was like, yeah. And they were venison meatballs and they were amazing. And my, at the time, vegetarian friend ate some and then ate the sauce and then has gone back to now eating a bit of meat and protein. So I'm like, yes. So you don't ask, you don't get, and don't be scared to just say, oh, do you mind just, you know, be polite, be sweet, but just be like, oh, cheekily, would you mind just asking the chef? And you never know what you're going to get. And if it's a no, then you just suck it up. And
there's a really funny scene, and I don't know the movie, but it's Ricky Gervais. And he is with a kid. I don't even know like the premise of it, but they're at like a diner, and he's like, "Hey, can we have 2 of the kids' fish and chips?" And the lady's like, "Oh, but that's only for kids."
Oh
He's like, "Okay, that's fine."
I've seen that. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And for people who haven't seen it, he then gets back and forth with this waitress, and she's like, "It's only for kids," and he's like, "But it's a smaller portion size," and she's like, "But it's cheaper," and he's like, because it's a smaller portion size. Like, it makes sense. He's like, I don't want the full thing. And she's like, well, you can't have it. You're not. And he's like, okay, the kid will have 2 of them. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, he's really hungry. And then she brings the food out and she like stares at him. Her and the chef are like staring at him. And then he reaches over and grabs them and shoves them all in his mouth, and then they freak out. But it's like the same kind of thing. Like, some people want to just fight over stuff, and like it's not that big of a deal. But I also think it's important to, that statement, and I know we're close on time, but that statement of I drink it when I want. If I don't want to, I don't do it. Like, people think that we're in this like cult of, oh my gosh, I can only eat meat, and if I touch a plant, I will die. Right? And you're like, no, or they're like, you're scared of plants, bro. I'm like, no, I literally just don't want to eat them. Why would I want to eat them? If I eat them and I don't feel as good, why would I want to do it? Like, it's super simple. But you know what? If I do want to do it, I'll eat it.
Yeah. I had this, a friend of mine got asked the other day, oh, you're friends with that carnivore mummy? And she said, oh, yeah. And she goes, does she force her kids to eat that way? And my friend just laughed and laughed and laughed. She's like, her kids are 3 of the most amazing children I've met. They cook and they do all these things, forced to doing anything. Like, they love meat. They love food. And sure, if they had the option, they would have, sugar and crap because it's addictive and and fine. But, nothing's forced. It is essentially they feel better. And every time they eat something that's off, they're like, oh, mummy, I shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't have. But you've got to learn for yourself. And I'm going to set the parameters, though, because your brain isn't developed enough for you to understand why this isn't good for you. And I am your mother, not your friend. So you're going to do as you're fucking told. Like, sorry, but not sorry. It is my responsibility for their health. And until they're old enough to have a proper understanding of what they're doing. And I didn't even until I was like, I turned 40. Like, I thought I knew how to eat and I didn't for 37 years. So, you just got to live and learn and then do better. And that's all we can do, eh?
I think my response to that, you got to go?
Yeah, I do. I've got my client sitting in the waiting room. But what were you going to say? What was your response?
No, I was just going to say, I'm going to start responding with, well, you can go touch a hot stove if you want.
Yeah,
Nothing's stopping you from touching a hot stove. Well, I don't want to do that. No kidding. Same thing. You're on Instagram as the Carnivore Mummy.
Yes.
Correct?
Mummy with a U for the Americans.
Yes.
Yes.
I will link all of your stuff. Thank you so much for coming on here. It was a pleasure to talk to you. For anybody listening, go give Jessica a follow. Absolutely fantastic on all of this stuff. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and tune in next time.